So you're trying to lose weight. Maybe don't.
You smell what I smell? That's some pure bullshit.
What's up, motivators? Welcome back. It's Kevin. This is Pure Bullfit. No, I have not lost my mind. I have not turned into Tyrone, the fitness halfwit. I'm not going to tell you that 20 push-ups a day can get you a shredded chest. We're going to have an honest, serious, legitimate conversation about the idea of losing weight. We're approaching it the wrong way. The conversation surrounding the idea of weight loss, dealing with a state of obesity, has gotten out of control. It's become more than a little bit toxic, and I feel like we've stopped trying to move the needle forward towards a healthier society, which both groups, both schools of thought claim to be trying to do, and now we're just trying to score internet points. And that's not what this community is about, so that's not what we're gonna do. Today, we're gonna press the reset button. Today, we're gonna talk about some of the actual shared philosophies that groups like Healthy at Every Size, Fat Acceptance, Body Positivity, and those of us in the fitness community have, the common ground that we have if we just reinsert the context. So, it's an important conversation. This is not a roast, this is not a joke. If that's what you came here for, there's the door. Don't let it hit you on your non-existent ass on the way out. But before we get into those specific philosophies, I want to talk about the general definition of weight loss. Weight loss, as in a simple reduction in body mass, is not a great goal for the vast majority of people. While we do have a significant problem with underactivity and overconsumption in this country, leading to about 70% of us being outside of the recommended range for our body weight, there are very few people who the number going down on the scale is the only consideration, and that's still being a good thing. Body mass is not simply made up of bad tissue or good tissue, and even adipose tissue or fat tissue serves a vital function in our bodies, and we do need a certain amount of it to remain healthy. However, in this breakdown in communication and the way that people have decided to toxically engage with each other, some really vital nuance has just been abandoned in favor of scoring points, getting likes, getting Instagram hearts, getting a little bit of notoriety, attention, and fame, and that's a damn shame. Weight loss in and of itself is not a great goal. You have to take into consideration not only your physical health, the long-term impacts of your body composition, which is really what we should be focusing on. Your starting point, your mental state, all of this is part of the same package. So if you're having really difficult time with your relationship with food, strict, restrictive weight loss is probably not the answer for you. It's probably going to be damaging, just like some of these communities are saying. So before we go any further, I want to acknowledge we're talking about body composition. That's the important thing. All right, with the understanding in mind that we're primarily talking about a healthy relationship with food and body composition, not strictly weight loss, the number on the scale going down, that absolute number, regardless of what's happening to your body. Let's move forward with addressing some of the philosophies, reinserting the context, and maybe with this information, we can actually find ways around the problems that are being raised by these communities, the points that are being raised by these communities as problematic. The first one that I want to talk about is the idea that diets don't work. Now, I have a whole other video on that specific number that people like to quote, 95% of diets fail. And you can go back and you can watch that, or I address where that number came from, why it's erroneous, why the study that it was that people are quoting is really not anything to base a movement on. But let's talk about the principle that diets don't work, because that is generally true. Because we're generally talking about restrictive diets, and restrictive diets don't work. Establishing a huge caloric deficit, restricting yourself, depriving yourself isn't good for your mental state, it's not good for your body, and it doesn't teach you any coping mechanisms, any skills, and it doesn't teach you a better relationship with food. You gain no understanding of how macronutrients work, what micronutrients are important, how to fuel your body, or how to address your long-term health. So I absolutely agree. Restrictive diets are bad, especially aggressively restrictive ones. There are certain cases where it's appropriate to be on a diet like that, but that would be under doctor's supervision at doctor's orders. You can't possibly hope to make a permanent change in your body or your life if you adopt a temporary regime that deprives you, it doesn't teach you anything, it doesn't arm you to move forward with more healthy habits. So those communities are absolutely correct. If you are looking at dieting as a restriction in nature, as depriving yourself of nutrition for a temporary period of time, not developing any skills, 100%, those don't work. And if that's what you as a trainer or a coach out there, or a healthy living advisor or whatever the fuck your title is, if that's what you're promoting, if that's what you're selling, you're part of the problem. The second one that I hear a lot is that calories in versus calories out doesn't work. And if you approach it from the very limited standpoint or understanding that the calories in recommended by your Fitbit or your chronometer or what have you, and your calories out as measured by your estimations or the Google search that you did on how many calories burned running a mile, or the algorithm that you read out on your cardio machine, yeah, you're gonna be disappointed. There's a number of factors that you need to consider in calories in versus calories out. First and foremost, those numbers that you get from those devices and those apps are estimates. You have to know your specific body fat. You have to know exact hormone balance, and even then you would only be able to estimate the total number of calories that you should intake to reach homeostasis, to reach an energy balance, to create a surplus or a deficit from, in order to gain weight or lose weight. Because gaining weight for people who are underweight is just as important as losing body mass, losing adipose tissue, losing fat tissue for people who are significantly overweight or who have obesity. It's really important to understand that those devices can only give you a starting point to try and estimate where you should begin your journey. And you have to constantly reevaluate the results to determine whether or not you are in an energy surplus or a deficit, if your activity is overcoming your consumption or vice versa. So every couple of weeks after you start, you should be measuring and analyzing your progress. That number not moving, if you need to gain weight or lose weight, means that you should add or subtract some calories from your intake. Tracking doesn't have to be an all-encompassing, overwhelming activity, but getting a general idea of how much you're intaking versus how much you're outputting is going to help you in the long run. Strictly assuming that the number that you read on your chronometer or your Fitbit or MyFitnessPal or whatever it is you happen to be using is going to lead to disappointment. It has for so many, which has convinced so many people that calories in versus calories out doesn't work. Energy balance is physics. It is that simple to describe, but actually taking advantage of it is much more complicated, and it may be that you need some professional help in determining how you're going to establish a deficit or a surplus to reach your goals. The next one I hear all the time is a doozy, and I am positive I'm going to piss somebody off here. Obesity does not cause disease. There's some truth to that, but hear me out. Before you get angry and start writing in the comment section, you have to understand how scientific review, research, and findings work. Causation is when a mechanism has been discovered and identified, when they know why A happens to B and causes C. That causative mechanism has not been strictly identified for a number, the majority, of the conditions associated with a state of obesity. Now, that said, correlation is not irrelevant. Correlation is an actual tool in the scientific evaluation process. You have causation and then you have correlation. And over a long period of time, decades and decades, we have loads of correlative evidence that suggests that there is a double-digit risk, sometimes triple-digit increase in risk for many conditions associated with a state of obesity. Do you know what else has a correlative relationship with the disease that it causes? Cigarettes and lung cancer. We do not know the specific mechanisms that cigarettes cause lung cancer, but we still say smoking causes lung cancer. It is the very same relationship with obesity and diabetes, 13 different types of cancer, and a host of other issues that you will very likely, much more increased risk of contracting or obtaining or acquiring if you are in a consistent state of obesity or overweight. All right, to sum up that very important point for anybody I may have lost there, while there is not a specific cause identified between these variety of conditions and obesity, a massive, significant, repeated, overwhelming amount of evidence correlates state of obesity and these conditions so significantly that you might as well say this causes that, in the same way that we say smoking causes lung cancer. And for people on my side of the fence, we really need to stop just screaming science in the face of anybody who acknowledges that we haven't specifically identified those causative mechanisms, that it is only correlated. We can't, out of one side of our mouth, say, ignore that study that supports fat positivity or healthy at every size because it's only correlated or it was a bad study, and then at the other side of our mouth, equate correlative evidence with causation and scream science at the top of our lungs. It's not productive. We're not helping our own case. We would all be better off if we simply acknowledge that there is a significant amount of evidence, but there is still more to be learned. The other point I hear all the time is that you can be healthy at any size. And the counterpoint is, yes, absolutely, you can be unhealthy at any size. But let's dig into this just a little bit. This is a murky subject because oftentimes what we're talking about is a specific metric of health being within the normal range. Perhaps you got your blood work done and maybe you weigh 350 pounds and you're 5'2", but your blood lipids came back in a normal range. Or your hormone function is normal for right now. Or any of the other ways that you can say, I'm healthy. Well, people who are within normal body fat ranges or accepted body fat ranges can also say that they're healthy by those same metrics, but they could be unhealthy by other metrics. The fact that thinner people or people in a normal weight range can be healthy or unhealthy does not take away from the very real facts that carrying excess adipose tissue or not enough fat tissue can lead to serious health complications down the line. If you said somebody weighs 260 pounds, the first thought for most people would be that person is on the large side. That person is probably at an unhealthy weight. I weigh 260 pounds and I'm currently around 21% body fat. In the last several months, I've put on 26 pounds in order to chase strength goals. I have intentionally put that weight on in order to chase two specific strength goals. I want to hit a 405-pound bench press and I want to hit a 500-pound back squat. And I have achieved as much lean mass as I could at the body fat percentage that I was at. Around 200 to 203 pounds of lean mass for my frame at 242 pounds was good. It was aesthetically pleasing, but it wasn't strong enough. And if I wanted to put on more lean mass, I needed to accept that I needed to put on a little more body fat. There are reasons that someone might want to go to a higher body fat range. Temporary, long-term. Take a look at Stephanie Buttermore. She put on 35 pounds recently in her All In initiative, and a lot of people have a problem with that. A lot of people were scared of that. She went from thin and fit, and what most people would consider aesthetically pleasing, to thick. And I still think that she's a very beautiful woman, and I don't think anybody should be judging her worth based off of their perceived notion of whether or not she is attractive. She was dealing with an emotional response, an emotional relationship with food that was leading to a cycle of binging and denial, restriction then binge. And that was not healthy for her in the long run. So for me, gaining weight had everything to do with specific goals. For her, gaining weight put her in a better mental place, and it is clear if you watch her videos now, her weight is stabilized, she worked with a doctor, she is a doctor herself, she probably knows more than you do. That 35 pounds sounded scary at first, it even scared me, but it is clear she's in a better place for what she's doing, and that is an important consideration. Healthy at every size has to include a mental component. I know lots of fit people who are neurotic, quivering messes. They are absolutely trash upstairs. Being fit does not make you better. And if you're going to ignore your mental state or your physical state in favor of one or the other, you have missed the point. It is a whole body approach, and if you're not approaching it from that angle, you're not healthy. The last point I want to touch on today is about intuitive eating. Now, right off the bat, I think that that is the appropriate end state for everyone. I think if we can get to a point where we are ready to intuitively eat, if we have such a good relationship and understanding of our food, we're not eating and over-consuming to address emotional issues, we're not under-eating to meet societal expectations, we are feeding ourselves at an appropriate level to our activity and to our goals. I think that's ultimately where everybody should be. Where I would argue with these communities is you can't start there. So few people are ready to start there. We have to develop the skills, the understanding in order to take advantage of a philosophy like that. And it is the appropriate end state. When I am not eating as I am right now in order to reach certain strength goals, I have an intuitive relationship with food. I understand about how much I need to eat. And it isn't a rubber stamp. It isn't equal for all. If you have been significantly overweight for a long period of time, Leptin and ghrelin, the two hormones responsible for feeling sated or feeling full or feeling hungry, they're generally out of whack and they have a hard time accurately predicting whether or not you are legitimately hungry or legitimately full. And they are more prone to becoming out of balance even if you have lost that excess tissue, even if you have gained a healthy relationship with food, so you have to be especially on guard moving forward. It is absolutely a very real struggle that people who have been significantly overweight or obese for a long period of time, that they easily put that weight back on. It is a real problem that needs to be acknowledged and faced. It's not as simple as losing the weight the one time. It's not as simple as getting to a healthy body composition one time. It is inertia. You have to get the ball rolling and it's hard to get it started, but once it's moving, it's a hell of a lot easier. But then the problem becomes you have to keep it moving. That's what fitness, health, happiness is about. Putting the initial effort in, moving it forward, and keeping it moving. It is a change in the way that you regard activity, the way that you approach your life, the way that you approach your mental health, the way that you understand and approach food. You have to change. You can't simply say, I'm going to deny myself these things in the short term, gain this goal, and then go back to the way that I was living that got me here to begin with. At the end of the day, I realize that this message isn't for everybody right now. I'm trying to reach the people who are ready to change, contemplating, planning, just need a little bit of help, need a little bit of guidance. I don't think people should be marginalized for having different viewpoints on life. I don't think you're a bad person if you happen to be over or underweight. I don't think you're a good person if you happen to fall within a healthy weight range. We have to work at that. We don't wake up good. I've seen too much of the filth of humanity to believe that we wake up good or good enough. It, like health and happiness, is a matter of inertia. We have to put that effort out, and we have to keep that effort up, or we're going to slow down, and we're going to eventually fail. As I said at the beginning of this video, I think the conversation around this entire topic has gotten entirely too toxic and we have abandoned context in favor of just scoring points. I think we could do better than that. I think we need to do better than that. So if what you came here for, what you're hoping for is to see me shit all over fit people or fat people, this might not be the community for you. There are public figures that we will continue to call out and roast the shit out of when they try and take advantage of you, try and steal your money, try and mislead you, try and take you down the wrong path. But that's not applicable to giant communities of people who just want to be treated like a human being, just want to be understood, don't want to be slapped in the face with your advice, with your health concern. I get it. I really do. And if I've got to change the way that I message or package my message in order to reach you, I'm perfectly willing to do that. I remain open and invite people to reach out to me and have conversations with me, but I do want to draw a hard line in the sand. Don't open a conversation with me expecting me to mindlessly parrot whatever agenda it is that you have. I don't do that with any of the people that I work with, and I'm certainly not going to do it for you. Just because you hate a public figure doesn't mean I am going to be your platform to spread that hate. I speak my mind, not yours. I'm perfectly willing to hear out people who have different points of view, incorporate that into how I communicate my message to folks so that it can be received well. But don't think just because you're angry at somebody I know, I'm gonna shit on them for you. So if you wanna get on board with moving the needle in a positive direction, go ahead and hit me up, reach out. If you wanna talk about anything that I've said, person to person, one-on-one, I try to answer every single message that I get. It's a lot easier on Instagram, look me up there, than it is on YouTube. I'm not actually getting all of those messages because of the filtering process. I would like this video to serve as a conversation starter. I don't think by any means that everything that needs to be said has been said. As I said before, I am absolutely open to people reaching out to me. I want to hear that communication. I want to understand where you're coming from so that we can have a productive conversation. Just save the toxic trolling for somebody else. All right, guys, that's it. That's the video for today. If you liked it, go ahead and hit that like button. If you didn't, they got a button for that too. If you want to see more of this content and you're not yet subscribed, you know what to do. Either way, let me know in the comment section below. Until I see you guys in the next video, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and go fit yourself.